This video brought to you by HelloFresh. Use code FULLMENTO65 to get 65% off with free shipping.
I'll take this and that, or need one of those, and I gotta take that. Yes, yes, no, yes, yes! All of these! This one is right. I'll get you, my kitties, and...
Puss in Boots: The Last Wish comes out of nowhere to contend for the title of the best movie of the year. And it does it so well overall that even I, a full-on virgin in terms of this franchise, now see the value in Puss in Boots. As for the reason why this movie's stars shine so bright, there are many. The animation itself is out of this world. It's like they assembled the Avengers of Hollywood animators. But the writing areas here especially are amazing. The characters are all constructed to be very funny and entertaining. The narrative is very efficiently built to a point where even a stick gets paid off in a way that services the overall plot. The thematic arcs are locked down to a T, and not only with the main hero but with the supporting cast as well. Like how Goldi has a goal of finding the magic wish to get a family until she ultimately learns that she already has her wish. While most other movies would have treated Goldi as just some wacky side character, this movie connects her to the main theme and at the end fulfills her own arc when she chooses to save Baby Bear over her wish.
Where's the baby? Forget the baby! Man, what's wrong with you? Are you some sick individual that just leaves a baby in distress?
But all that said, among the very top sources for this movie's strength is the main villain, the Big Bad Wolf, which is quite curious considering that he's barely in the movie. He has maybe a couple proper scenes, and yet they're enough for him to leave a mark and take the internet by storm. And with this too, there are many aspects I've covered in earlier videos. One of them, for example, is that the villain's introduction is built on the foundation laid for the hero. In the beginning, Puss in Boots takes down a giant in a way that establishes him to be an expert combatant. And when he then comes across the wolf, it doesn't work. He can't even get a lick in. All of a sudden, all that combat build-up work done for Puss in Boots now transfers over to apply to the wolf as well, and thus makes him leave an immediate mark. It's just like I talked about with PS4's God of War. Kratos is built up to be a physical badass who takes down giants with his fists, and then this puny, slender villain shows up to his door to...
What are you doing in my store?
But to know more about stuff like that, check out my older videos about the topic. Or even better, check out my upcoming book on Amazon, which condenses all the writing and filmmaking lessons from my videos over the last 5 years into one super navigable place.
Yes! Hey, come on, baby!
As for today though, let's try to identify a couple new qualities that make the Big Bad Wolf such a great big bad. Not only to know why we value him, but also to steal that value for our own villains. The first quality making the wolf an effective villain is that he's a physical representation of the hero's personal demons. So basically, the basis for Puss in Boots' journey is that after kicking butt and taking names all across the land, death has finally caught up with him. He's down to the last of his 9 lives, and for the first time ever, he starts to realize his own mortality to a point where it reduces him into a shadow of his former self. He gives up his life of adventure to become a house cat. He hides from enemies he would have normally fought with a grin, and he goes on a mission to find a magical star to wish for more lives to be able to keep on living his life. Clearly, the presence of death has become a heavy weight pressing down on him.
What's going on with you, Puss?
I am down to my last life, and I am afraid.
And with that said, what exactly then is it that makes the wolf specifically such a strong opponent? Well, because he is that very thing that the hero wrestles with. He's death. And I don't mean it metaphorically or rhetorically or poetically or theoretically or in any other fancy way. He is death straight up. And after being cheated 8 times in a row now, he's come for just one thing: to get Puss in Boots. In other words, the wolf embodies the unbearable weight that weighs down on the hero's shoulders. Yes, death by itself is a pretty menacing opponent, but it's the context tying him to those demons running wild inside the hero that gives him that extra oomph. Puss in Boots does face many crazy opponents, from a crime family of bears to a giant man-baby wielding an endless arsenal of weaponized magic. All of them are worthy opponents, yet none of them ultimately are more than that. As opponents, they're limited to what they are on the outside. Whereas when the hero's inner demons are externalized, it's like a sledgehammer to the heart.
That is not helping. That is not helping.
And in that way, whoever or whatever your villain is, they can be much more when they're boosted with context connecting them to what the hero wrestles with within. That can be very literal, like a hero suffering from trauma with water and swimming, having to go up against some kind of a water monster, or a hero who lost his mother to cancer, having to face cancer in a body. Or it can be less literal, like how the Joker in The Dark Knight represents chaos and the evil nature of humanity, which is what has chained Bruce Wayne into being Batman instead of having a life. Or like how Voldemort in Harry Potter is the source of Harry's powers. Or like how Darth Vader, being Luke's father, destroys Luke's perception of his father as well as of his own path. The point is to make the villain the worst thing possible for the hero to face. The reason we can feel the wolf to be present even when he's not is because Puss in Boots' personal demons are present, and those two are the same thing. One means the other. The wolf carries a larger meaning and purpose. Overall, instead of just building a cool villain with cool powers, do that build up more from inside out. Identify the main wounds and flaws and traumas and fears and demons that the hero carries within, and then pile all that into a representing form to serve as the main oppositional force on the outside.
Without lives to spare, I am nothing.
So, why don't I do us both a favor and take this last one now?
There is no stronger villain than the one that the hero is not able to go up against. The second quality making the wolf an effective villain is that the stakes he proposes and carries are established in practice. Like I mentioned, the main stakes here are about Puss in Boots running from death, and death is indeed shown, one life after another. Right at the start, he gets killed off just like that, after which it turns out to have happened quite a bit. Whether it's due to simping,
I'm the mutt, by the way.
or due to pushing his luck, or due to drinking and flying, or due to not letting Filmento help him at the gym, or due to... or due to holding up and letting someone cook, or due to cooking. And it's the fact that Puss in Boots' death has happened that makes his potential final death feel more likely to happen. No, he's never actually died, and yes, most characters have just one life to begin with anyway. But because we've seen him go down to his last life, that's what makes the value of that last life seem immense. That's why the stakes over saving that life seem incredibly palpable. There are already 8 marks in the villain's blade, and so the 9th doesn't seem so far away anymore. The defeat meter is at 90% rather than at 0. You know, audiences are human, and humans are always more likely to believe something that in some form has already come to pass. We can't truly appreciate the value of a seatbelt until we've experienced a situation in which it's needed. That's why time travel movies are often really inherently good at stakes, because there it's about reverting a problem that's already occurred. In that manner, whatever the stakes that your villain carries, be it death or snapping away the universe, find some way and some form to prove them as real. But in addition to that, there are also smaller and more individual stakes related elements here that are positioned in a way to make it seem like has indeed just gotten real. Puss in Boots early on is established to be untouchable by all blades and attacks, whether it's against a squad of henchmen,
Puss in Boots has never been touched by a blade,
or against a giant shadow of the Colossus hurling a bell at him. It's like he's doing a flawless speedrun. And when he then comes across the wolf, what happens? Well, he gets touched by a bladed attack and bleeds.
Just got real.
Puss in Boots is also established to be fearless, to a point where he finds all conflict amusing and laughs even at the face of death.
laughable, man.
And what happens when he faces the wolf? Well, he fears so much that his hairs stand up not only on his neck but all across his body. He's so scared that not only would he number 2 in his pants if he had any pants, but he also becomes literal number 2. Things get so bad in terms of fear that even the dog no one wants to be around is needed to fulfill his dream of being a therapy dog. He calms things down by getting up close and personal with Puss in Boots.
Just got real.
And in this vein, you can make stakes seem real by negatively disproving bigger and smaller things that have been positively proven. Whether it means having the hero's famous sword be lost in an early battle, or having the famous hero not be recognized because he fell out so badly, or whether it means having the hero's lives flash before his eyes to signal the idea that he indeed has a life that's now about to come to an end. The point is to build something and then destroy it to show that destruction is possible. Think of it like gravity. The only way to know it's real is by lifting something up and then watching it fall. When stakes seem real and thus serious, the villain serving as their source can and will be seen as a threat that's seriously real. The third quality making the wolf an effective villain is that his defeat requires more than just punching him in the face. As I already touched on, the main motive driving the villain's side is Puss in Boots' disregard of life and death. He doesn't value what he currently has and takes it all for granted. He's an arrogant douche who treats others like they were air under his boots. He runs from everyone and everything because he has time only for himself. Overall, he's such an a-hole that it gets too much even for him.
You know what? You guys are jerks! Which is very conflicting for me.
That's the fundamental character flaw of Puss in Boots and why the wolf is coming for him, because he thinks he's better than death itself.
I find the very idea of 9 lives absurd, and you didn't value any of them.
And at the end, it all comes to a head when the wolf drives Puss in Boots into a corner with no more chance to run away, forcing him to take up arms and face him in a fight. Which does indeed happen. There is a lot of fighting and punching and whatnot, and it is very well done. It builds on the characters, like how Puss in Boots pushes himself enough to drive the wolf to the next level. It builds on the narrative, like how Puss in Boots uses the little kitty blade gun earlier to avoid certain doom in a way that also signals the value of having people beside you. And it builds on the arcs, like how Puss in Boots uses his signature finisher move on the wolf to signal that he's gotten his mojo back. But all that said, this external fighting isn't what ultimately leads to the wolf's defeat. Instead, it's the fact that Puss in Boots has grown over his core character flaw and in the process made it impossible for the villain's motivation to carry on. He has learned the value of the life he has, and this time he won't stop fighting for it, which in the process takes away what the wolf is after.
I came here for an arrogant little legend who thought he was immortal, but I don't see him anymore.
Just as the wolf represents the hero's inner demons, his defeat comes from inside the hero, which makes his defeat and him worth much more than what it would all be at face value. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean that a villain shouldn't be defeated externally. They can be, and often it can be great. But the point is that in any case, there has to be more to the defeat. There has to be a larger meaning for it. Because if there's not, then you get dumb villains like the ghost lady in Curse of La Llorona, who gets all this specific backstory only to ultimately be defeated by being stabbed in the chest with a certain wooden cross.
Oh, I can't believe you've done this.
That's it, that's all it takes. There's so little specificity to the method that the same method could have been used to defeat any other villain from down the street. And as a result, the lady seems like such a little paper tiger that's how she ultimately comes across to the audience.
I guess we found out his weakness. Bullets.
The strongest villains are those who get defeated in a way that only they specifically can be defeated. Like how Aladdin beats Jafar by realizing that you should make the most of what you have instead of always asking for more. Or like how Luke beats Palpatine by refusing the dark side in favor of believing in the light side buried deep within his father. Or like how Puss in Boots beats death by learning to be more than just a dead man walking. The only way for him to defeat the wolf is to first defeat the personal demons inside himself. That's what what gives the wolf more layers than just the exterior. That's what makes the big bad wolf such an effectively strong villain. And coupled with everything else, that's what makes this movie so great. So much so that even I, with no past experience with this animated franchise, can now go outside and scream out with my head held high that I, Filmento, love Puss. But that said, another thing I also love is food, in big part because I recently learned that my body requires it to function. The problem, however, is that I'm such a man baby enslaved to my schedule that I don't have the time or knowledge to start cooking anything up. I just eat the same plain microwave foods every day.
What the f is this piece of shit?
That's until one day I heard a strange voice outside my door saying,
Hold up, let him.
And once I opened the door, I found a box full of fresh ingredients and recipes from the heavens, which I then used to do something I hadn't before: cook. I later found out that this heavenly voice belonged to HelloFresh, a food subscription service that makes it super easy and effortless to add variety to what you eat.
Tight, yeah!
You simply select the frequency of meals and choose what you want from over 40 weekly chef-crafted recipes, after which everything is delivered to your door, ready to be cooked. It's much cheaper and better than takeout, and it's faster than normal as well because you don't have to keep thinking what you eat or search for everything at the store. Just pick your weekly meals and take them from the box to prepare them. It's so great that now everyone who comes to my house makes the same observation.
Someone cooked here.
So if you want to try it out yourself, as you should, go to HelloFresh.com and use code Filmento65 to get 65% off with free shipping.